Most people think $1 million would solve their life. No more stress. No more panic checking the bank account before buying groceries. No more calculating whether the rent payment is going to overdraft your checking account 3 days before payday. Just freedom. That's the fantasy most people carry around in their head. But what almost nobody talks about is how many ordinary people would quietly destroy themselves with that kind of money. Not with private jets, or giant mansions, or some Hollywood-style collapse. It happens in ways that feel normal, responsible even. A better apartment because you finally deserve one. A safer car because your old one keeps breaking down. Helping your parents because they struggled for you your whole life. Investing in a business opportunity because you want the money to grow instead of just sitting there. And then one day, usually much faster than anyone expects, the money is gone. That's the dangerous thing about financial collapse. While you're living through it, it rarely feels like collapse. It feels like life finally improving. Imagine this. You're 35 years old. You make about $60,000 a year. Not rich, not broke. Just permanently stuck in that exhausting middle zone where life constantly feels slightly more expensive than your paycheck can comfortably handle. Your rent has increased twice in 3 years. Your car makes a strange noise every winter, but you keep ignoring it because repairs cost money you don't really have. You carry credit card debt that follows you around quietly like background anxiety. Every month feels less like progress and more like survival, with slightly nicer packaging. Then, one random Wednesday morning, everything changes. Maybe it's an inheritance. Maybe it's a lawsuit settlement. Maybe you sold a small business. Doesn't matter. What matters is this. You open your banking app and suddenly there's $1 million sitting there. Liquid cash. More money than you've ever seen in your entire life. Your heart starts racing. You refresh the screen 3 times because your brain doesn't fully believe it yet. And within minutes, your future starts rewriting itself in your head. That's where the real danger begins, not when somebody buys something reckless. Much earlier than that. The danger starts the moment your identity changes faster than your habits do. Because money does not automatically make people financially smarter. It simply gives them the ability to make bigger decisions with bigger consequences. The first few days would feel surreal. You'd still drive the same car to work, but suddenly everything around you would feel temporary. The apartment feels temporary. The furniture feels temporary. The stress feels temporary. Even your current life starts feeling like something you're emotionally preparing to leave behind. And humans adapt to comfort unbelievably fast. Faster than most people realize. That's why sudden money becomes psychologically dangerous. Once your brain accepts a higher lifestyle as normal, going backward feels emotionally painful, even if the lifestyle was never sustainable in the first place. This is where most people misunderstand wealth completely. They think wealth is about how much money comes in. In reality, wealth is about how long money stays. Someone making $80,000 a year while investing consistently, avoiding unnecessary debt, and keeping manageable expenses may quietly build more long-term security than someone who suddenly receives $1 million and starts spending emotionally. Because financial stability is usually less about dramatic income and more about behavior repeated consistently over long periods of time. But behavior is emotional, and money amplifies emotion. Think about how quickly your decisions would start changing. Maybe your old Honda suddenly feels embarrassing instead of reliable. Maybe your apartment starts feeling too small for the new version of yourself you're imagining. Maybe you start saying yes to things you used to automatically say no to. Better restaurants, last-minute weekend trips, more delivery apps, better clothes, faster convenience, upgraded everything. None of those choices sound irresponsible individually. That's exactly why they become dangerous collectively. Most financial disasters are built from reasonable moments stacked together slowly over time, not catastrophic stupidity. One of the biggest traps people fall into after getting money is confusing affordability with sustainability. Those are not the same thing. Being able to buy something once does not mean you can comfortably maintain it long term. A luxury SUV might technically fit inside your bank account today. But now comes the insurance, the maintenance, the registration, the premium gas, the monthly payment, the social identity attached to it. A luxury apartment doesn't just increase your rent, it changes your entire lifestyle. Suddenly, your old furniture looks wrong. Your social habits change. Your spending starts matching the environment around you. Lifestyle inflation never arrives dramatically. It creeps in quietly. First, it's food delivery 4 nights a week because work has been stressful. Then the upgraded gym membership. Then the expensive skincare products. Then the impulse Amazon purchases that don't even feel expensive anymore. Then the luxury couch financed over 48 months because you want your apartment to finally look like an adult lives there. Then suddenly, your monthly expenses have doubled, and you barely noticed it happening. That's the terrifying thing about lifestyle inflation. It rarely feels irresponsible while you're inside it. It just feels normal. Modern American culture encourages this behavior constantly. Everywhere you look, people are performing success online. Beautiful kitchens, luxury vacations, designer clothes, new cars with giant touchscreens and ambient lighting. Social media created an environment where people feel pressure to look financially successful long before they become financially secure. And once someone suddenly gets money, that pressure becomes incredibly dangerous because now they finally have the ability to participate. But appearances are expensive to maintain, and appearances create expectations. Let's say you move into a luxury apartment because now you can finally afford something nicer. At first, it feels incredible. In-unit laundry, rooftop pool, floor-to-ceiling windows, secure parking. You tell yourself this is what successful adults are supposed to live like. But after a few months, the emotional excitement fades completely. The apartment becomes normal. The expensive rent stays. Humans adapt to comfort frighteningly fast. That's why people continuously chase upgrades without necessarily becoming happier. The comfort becomes invisible, but the financial obligation remains painfully real. And then your relationships begin changing too. The moment people believe you have money, they start seeing possibility. A cousin needs help covering medical bills. Your friend has a startup idea that sounds promising. Your brother says he finally has a real business opportunity. Your parents are stressed about debt. And because you care about these people, saying no feels emotionally brutal. Most people don't become financially unstable because they're selfish. Ironically, many become unstable because they're trying to be generous without boundaries. Helping people feels meaningful, especially when you finally have the power to help. But this is one of the hardest financial lessons adults ever learn. Love and financial wisdom are not always the same thing. Sometimes the people you care about most can unintentionally pull you into dangerous financial patterns, not because they're evil, because they're struggling too. America is expensive right now. Housing costs are brutal in many cities. Healthcare debt destroys families quietly. Credit card balances follow millions of people around, like invisible stress. So when one person in a family suddenly gets money, everyone around them subconsciously starts treating that money as emotional relief. Slowly, without realizing it, you stop being a person with resources and start becoming the emergency solution for everyone else's problems. The scary part is that every decision still feels emotionally justified in the moment. Your mother needs help avoiding eviction. Of course you help. Your friend has a business opportunity that sounds legitimate. Why not invest? Your brother says he finally has a plan to turn his life around. You want to believe him because he's your brother. Every choice feels reasonable emotionally. But emotion is not the same thing as due diligence. This is where people make devastating mistakes. They start treating emotional trust as financial analysis. They invest in people instead of evaluating structure. They wire money without contracts. They enter partnerships without documentation. They assume confidence is evidence. It isn't. Most failed investments sound exciting in the beginning. Nobody pitches you a business by saying, "This will probably collapse in 18 months." They sell vision, momentum, possibility, confidence. And confidence is persuasive, especially when you suddenly feel pressure to make your money grow instead of just sitting there. This creates another dangerous psychological trap. People become uncomfortable holding cash. They feel pressure to make the money work immediately, but urgency and investing are usually a terrible combination. The best financial decisions often feel boring. Diversified investing, emergency savings, slow, consistent growth, long-term retirement accounts, patience. None of that sounds exciting online. Nobody goes viral saying they invested steadily into index funds for 20 years and avoided lifestyle inflation. But boring systems are often stronger than emotional opportunities. Unfortunately, most people learn this lesson after losing money, not before. And losses become emotionally complicated because humans hate admitting mistakes. Imagine investing $50,000 into a friend's business. At first you feel excited, smart, early, supportive. Then problems start appearing. Delays, excuses, cash flow issues, more requests for money. But instead of pulling back, many people emotionally double down because admitting failure hurts the ego. This is the sunk cost trap. Humans irrationally continue investing resources into failing situations because they desperately want to recover what they already lost. Financially, this can become catastrophic. Sometimes the smartest financial decision is accepting a painful loss early before it becomes a devastating loss later. But emotionally, that feels almost impossible, especially when relationships are attached to the money. Another thing people underestimate is how exhausting it becomes trying to maintain a lifestyle that expanded too quickly. $1 million sounds infinite until monthly expenses start multiplying. Imagine spending $8,000 a month after upgrading your life. That's nearly $100,000 every year, disappearing before taxes, investment losses, emergencies, or inflation even enter the picture. Suddenly, the money that once felt endless now has a countdown attached to it. But psychologically, people adapt slower than the numbers decline. Their lifestyle remains built around old assumptions, while their financial reality quietly weakens underneath them. This is why many people stop checking their bank accounts regularly when things begin slipping. Avoidance becomes emotional self-protection. If they don't look directly at the numbers, maybe things are still okay. But avoiding financial reality never improves it. In fact, clarity is probably one of the most underrated financial skills in existence. Not predicting the stock market, not finding secret investments. Clarity. Knowing exactly how much comes in, exactly how much goes out, exactly how much debt exists, exactly which recurring expenses are quietly draining your future every month. Most people are not destroyed financially by one dramatic purchase. They're destroyed by recurring costs they normalized emotionally. The expensive car payment, the luxury apartment, the endless subscriptions, the convenience spending, the travel habits. Financial pressure usually builds slowly enough that people emotionally adjust to it before they intellectually question it. Then eventually reality catches up. Maybe the market drops. Maybe a recession hits. Maybe healthcare costs explode unexpectedly. Maybe someone loses their job. Maybe an investment fails. Suddenly, the margin disappears. And margin matters more than most people realize. Margin is what allows people to survive uncertainty without panic. Emergency savings create margin. Low fixed expenses create margin. Living below your maximum affordability creates margin. Without margin, every setback becomes a crisis. One medical emergency can destabilize everything. One layoff becomes catastrophic. One bad investment becomes unrecoverable. Financially stable people are often not the people making the flashiest moves. They're the people quietly protecting margin year after year. But protecting margin feels boring compared to publicly upgrading your life. That's why so many people ignore it until life forces them to understand its value. Another major mistake people make is confusing liquidity with wealth. A large number sitting in a checking account creates emotional confidence. But cash without structure disappears frighteningly fast. Real financial stability usually requires systems: budgeting, investing strategy, tax awareness, emergency reserves, boundaries, long-term thinking. Without systems, money becomes emotional fuel, and emotional fuel burns quickly. One thing that surprises many people about money is how deeply emotional it actually is. We pretend finances are logical, but human behavior constantly proves otherwise. People spend when they're stressed. They overspend when they're lonely. They buy expensive things when they feel insecure. They justify rewards because they think they deserve relief. Consumer culture understands this perfectly. Advertisements rarely sell products logically. A luxury watch isn't sold as something that tells time. It's sold as success. A luxury car isn't sold as transportation. It's sold as status, power, and importance. Companies understand emotional spending better than most consumers understand themselves. And when someone suddenly gets money, emotional spending opportunities multiply everywhere. This is why self-awareness matters financially. Understanding your emotional triggers can protect you from incredibly expensive mistakes. Some people spend to impress others. Some spend because they're anxious. Others spend because they're trying to create a version of themselves they think will finally feel successful. But external upgrades rarely fix internal insecurity permanently. The excitement fades. Then, new spending replaces old spending. The cycle repeats itself. At the end of the day, the biggest financial lesson most adults eventually learn has very little to do with stock tips or luxury lifestyles. It's this: money measures behavior more than intention. Good intentions do not automatically create good financial outcomes. Financial ruin rarely arrives wearing a warning sign. Most of the time, it arrives disguised as comfort, as rewards, as generosity, as success. Until one ordinary morning, you open your banking app and realize the life you built slowly consumed the future you thought money had guaranteed.